Hi, Jonathan. Thank you for joining us. I'm interviewing you today basically for you to get a chance to tell us your story.
Thank you for having me, first off. So, my story began when I was a newborn. I was born 3 weeks early, and I had some complications, nothing out of the ordinary for preemie babies. My parents just thought, oh, like he was early, we went through it, whatever, he's fine now. Well, in December of 2000, I was 20 months old. Yeah, I was 20 months old, and I went into a coma. My heart stopped 5 times when when I went to the hospital. My parents didn't think I was going to make it. They were prepared to, this was 5 days before Christmas, too. They were ready just to say their goodbyes, but luckily, by some miracle, some force of nature, I made it out alive. I had plenty of physical disabilities. I went through occupational physical therapy all the way up till 5th grade because I lacked gross motor skills. My handwriting was off. I couldn't do the same things that other kids my age were doing. Like in gym, I was short of breath, which actually led me to being asthmatic. So a combination of those things really defined my childhood. I didn't let it define me as a whole, but those were certain things in my childhood being physically delayed in a sense that led me to my story. And then when I grew up, I don't want to say I outgrew my disability, but I kind of matured and I kind of caught up to everybody else who was my age. And I'm physically fit now for the most part. Some other conditions I have asthma, as I mentioned, I have ulcerative colitis, and my story led me here to Quinnipiac. And I'm here now. I'm happy to be here, and here we are.
How did your story impact others who went through this similar story?
So I don't know anybody with my specific condition. In 2019, I was diagnosed with a rare genetic disorder that only 20 people in the world have. It's called 3-hydroxy 3-methylglutarol CoA synthase deficiency. I had to write it down a few times before I fully memorized it, if I'm being completely honest. And I don't know anybody with the condition personally, but I know a lot of people with chronic illnesses, and I know a lot of people who have asthma or who have ulcerative colitis. So I think honestly, having an open dialogue and being able to talk about the struggles with their conditions, the highs and lows, is really important because if you just keep it sheltered to yourself, like some people do, some people are more reserved, but I felt as though talking about it really helped me, and I know it helps others. So I think starting a podcast, as I mentioned earlier, would it opened up a dialogue for me where I'm able to have a safe space to talk about my condition and my struggles and the successes I face navigating a rare medical condition. But I think more just to let other people know that they're not alone and they're not suffering alone in silence.
What is one resource that has been the most beneficial resource for you?
I think for me, honestly, having two parents who very much were my biggest advocates growing up, I think a lot of the things I had as a child, a lot of the services I had in school, a lot of the doctors I went to is because my parents always advocated for me. And I understand not everybody is as fortunate as I am who had two loving parents who would go to war for me. But I think having the two biggest advocates on my side always was the biggest blessing and the best resource I could have asked for.
So, where can our listeners watching right now, where can they go find your podcast and listen to it themselves after they watch this video?
So I have it uploaded. I have a Instagram page and a
Mm-hmm.
Twitter page,
Okay.
one of 20 podcast, and then
Mm-hmm.
I have a link tree which
Okay.
has different links to where you can find my podcast. Spotify, Google Podcast, and YouTube are the big three streamers right now.
Okay.
And when you go to my link tree, it'll redirect you to YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
Spotify, or Google Podcasts.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And everyone, go listen to Jonathan's podcast.